The band's back together. It's been a while since myself, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews have been together to do a full podcast. We talk Mac, we answer your questions, and a whole lot more. It's the Roll Jays podcast.
Heads up, it's the Roll Jays podcast, the voice of the Creighton basketball fan. With your hosts, Jimmie Allen, Alex Drake, and Casey Matthews. Join the crew and meet CU players, coaches, and a whole lot more. Now, the Roll Jays podcast. Here's Jimmie Allen.
Welcome into the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. Jimmie Allen, Alex Drake, Casey Matthews with you here on a beautiful Monday afternoon. We want to give a real quick shout out to all of our new followers and thank everybody for also following the Big East Energy Podcast Network. We're adding all of the schools throughout the Big East Connected Network to our network. So if you're a giant college hoops fan, maybe just a giant Big East fan, we have the network for you. Please follow it, like, and subscribe to the Big East Energy Network on YouTube, as well as our podcast. Guys, Coach Mack took to the radio last night and was talking to John Bishop and Josh Peterson on 1620 The Zone and went over a lot of stuff. And this is really the first time he's talked publicly since the Alan Huss announcement. And there was a lot of really interesting things to unpack. I was talking to my co-host on my radio show, John Schreiner, and he was like, I really didn't feel like we got anything out of that interview. And then we ended up doing 3 whole segments dedicated to it. So I wanted to talk to you guys about it as well. Obviously, I think everybody kind of speculated that Mac was hoping that it would either be Darren DeVries or Alan Huss as the head coach in waiting, or his heir apparent. And he alluded to and said as much so last night. And obviously D-Rock getting the Indiana job, that's probably gonna take up a lot of people's first choices. And that kind of Mac alluded to, that's kind of the reason that Alan Huss coming back to Creighton at this time, despite being a head coach, was the reason to do it at this time. Casey, when we talk about the rarity of having a sitting head coach voluntarily leave a school to come and be an assistant for 1, 2, 3 years at another university, it's almost unheard of. But the fact that Mac got the opportunity to give this to Alan Huss and make sure that Creighton is in a spot better than when he came in, most people I think would agree with that.
That's a great point, Jimmie.
It is such a big deal.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, talking to Huss a few weeks ago on the prior episode was really fun because I think you got to see a different side of him where now, like, certainly he understands his role. That's one thing I think that one reason why I have so much respect for Huss is that, you know, he, even when he was here before, like he was an assistant then, but he was really like Mac's right-hand man. But he just understands like what Mac needs and what Mac wants from him. And I think it's pretty evident that he's still going to do that, but that he's also looking at the future and looking at, you know, when he is the head coach here, whenever that might be. I think it's a year. Some people disagree with me, but I think this is it for Coach Mac here. And so it's, in terms of like how rare it is, it's certainly rare. But I think also it's rare to have, like, just because he was successful at High Point. This isn't like he was just doing okay and was like, all right, I better get out of here before I lose and then I don't get a shot, you know, because that happens. But he was killing it at High Point. Another great recruiting class. Like, I mean, and it's a great job. And go ahead.
Yeah, he brought that up with us, right? I mean, like he said, he'd just go to the local grocery store and there'd be a 4-star just standing there ready to talk to him.
Yeah.
And Alex, I mean, Mac said one of the reasons that Alan Huss was the right guy, and in Mac's words, 100% the right hire, was because of his forethought on NIL and was really ahead of the curve at the time. And he showed that in being successful at High Point. And Mac talked about the way the stars aligned with Ryan Miller getting the head coaching job at Murray State, Alan Huss taking this job. But the interesting thing about it was the timing with it, which I thought was really interesting. Mac said he talked to Father Hendrickson and Marcus Blossom before the Big East tournament. So this is something that's been in the works for a while. Were you surprised to hear about the timing, Alex?
No, not really. I mean, I think you kind of always, in Mac's shoes, if you are dedicated to leaving the program in solid hands, I think I think he's been thinking about that for a while. Not necessarily with it directly being Huss or initiating the conversation with Huss, but I think if anything, Mac has shown over his tenure at Creighton that he is very thoughtful and tries to get out in front of a lot of things. And so if this was his plan all along, he was going to go get the support ahead of time. And you obviously knew too. I think Huss's success probably sped it up in terms of him having to go talk to Blossom and Father ahead of time because Huss was all over some big boards. Some major power conference teams had reached out to him, and so if you were going to make it Huss, and I think Mac has made it pretty clear that he was one of his top two choices, and the other one was taking the Indiana job. You had to get it done as early as possible.
Yeah, the other interesting thing that he brought up was, the fact that Marcus let him do this, and I think a lot of people in the Creighton network would say, "Well, of course he did. It's Mac, and Mac's been here forever." I want to take a minute and give Marcus Blossom his flowers for a second because he did not have to do this. Is it the right thing to do? Yeah, on its face, yes, absolutely. Now, it's also a win-win situation for Marcus Blossom too, right? I mean, if it comes in and it works out, hey, listen, I gave Mac the ability to bring in his own guy, and if it doesn't work out, Marcus has got a little bit of an out with saying, "Hey, listen, this wasn't my hire.
I didn't choose them."
Yeah, exactly. But the fact that Marcus Blossom has the wherewithal to say, "Listen, this guy has been Creighton basketball for the better part of a decade, and taking his blessing and his thoughts of what's next is probably the best option." There aren't too many athletic directors in the country that would do that, and I honestly, I'm a little surprised that Marcus, who has made some very good hires at Creighton, had the self-awareness to go, "I should probably let this happen." Casey, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think when I think about this from Marcus's perspective, I think you also have to look at it as like, one, ultimately men's basketball has to win at Creighton.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, that's first and foremost. And all the other sports matter, no question. But men's basketball has to win. And think of, in the same league, think of Jay Wright leaves. They bring in Kyle Neptune. The success doesn't maintain there.
Doesn't even come close.
Right. You have other examples of big time Big East coaches leaving and the program kind of, I don't want to say deteriorating, but certainly going downhill, and then having to kind of go back and hire the next guy and hope that it works. I think when you can hire someone like Huss, who had a lot of success at Creighton, but then leaves, has a lot of success, and then has the backing like he has from Coach Mack, from the fan base. I think the other side of it is he played here, and so he's still connected to Coach Altman as well. I just think there's a lot there that for Marcus, it couldn't have been that hard of a choice. I mean, it really couldn't have been. Like, I think that's.
No, I agree with that, but to be in the power chair, to have that job, to be an athletic director at a school like Creighton, there has to be a little bit of an ego with it. You have to do that job and be able to do it successfully. There has to, and to have, by on its face, zero say in the decision, that takes really big self-awareness to understand.
But do you really think it's zero say? Because I don't.
No. Listen, I mean, it's also the ability to hire Alan Huss, right? who's getting calls from several major colleges and probably would have been in Creighton shortlist anyway. So it's not like it's a guy that doesn't make sense. So I mean, that's got to make it easier. But
I think I would offer you this too, though. The reason why I think certainly it was Mac's idea and pushed this, with Father Hendrickson and Marcus, and was able to get this to where it is now. But I also think you got to remember too, Huss had a choice too. And this isn't, I think when you look at this in terms of like, oh, well, it's Creighton, we're all Creighton fans. We know how great Creighton is, and so does Huss. But at the same time, when you're being courted by other programs and your name is being floated around by big time programs, you have options. With the team that's coming back at High Point, they'll win the league again this year. So what I'm saying is, if you're Coach Huss, you're looking at this too of like, is this the AD that I want to work for?
Sure.
And so,
Sure.
I don't think you do unless you feel like this AD wants you as well. And so,
great point.
I think that's the other side of this. Is it was certainly like for us, like, yeah. If Marcus Boston called me tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'm going to name you the next head coach at Creighton. Are you cool with that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a pretty good deal for me. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that."
I need exactly what Mac's making.
Yes, right. But when it's Huss and he's already an existing head coach, doing a great job at a great program with all these other options, I think it has to give you like, okay, I need to make sure this is the right move and this is the right guy that I'm going to go work for. And so I think we got to also keep that in mind. Like it's a very interesting situation. And Mac's comments were awesome to say what he said and that he's the no-brainer choice. Like, I think it speaks volumes.
Well, I think too, guys, like, and we've kind of touched on it, so we don't have to go very long here, but I think it's incredibly admirable, might be the right word. I'm searching for the right word, but coaches have egos too, right? And it is really hard to give up the keys to the kingdom to go take a back seat, even at a bigger program for an unknown amount of time. I mean, I'm in alignment with Casey. I think it's 2 years max. It's probably 1, but it takes a lot of humility to be like, I got a pretty good thing going here. I'm going to give it up and go take a back seat for another year.
Well, and here's the thing on the timing thing, whether it's 1 year, whether it's 2 years, and I don't see any world in which it's more than that. Matt could play as coy as he wants. I'm pretty sure he knows how long he's staying because I don't know anybody. I don't care if you're alumni, you played here, you met your wife here, you're from here, and this was your dream job all along. Nobody is giving up a head coaching job to come back somewhere to be the head coach in waiting without an exact time frame on it. Like, they probably just don't feel comfortable saying that. And it may be based on how this season goes. Listen, they pushed all the chips in to get the right kids here to win this year.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, Jimmie.
And that's very apparent that they have kind of left no stone unturned to make sure that they win this season. And I think that should probably tell you everything you need to know.
And Mac basically said as much yesterday on the radio, right? He pointed out, the team that won the National Football Playoff this year, they were probably a top 1-2 spender. All your Final Four
Which they
teams
were number 1, by the way.
Yeah. But all the Final Four teams were top 8 to 10. I mean, these are all things that he said. He said the teams that are winning the most are spending the most. And you could tell that Creighton opened up the pocketbook a little bit more than normal.
And I want to dive into that for a second too, because the two of the most interesting comments, and we're going to get to the unselfish player thing in a second here, but the other one was the way they recruited, expecting not to have Fedor Zugic.
Yeah.
And to me, I thought that was very eye-opening. I've been talking to John Walker from the Omaha World Herald and several other people in the know, and everybody felt like it was probably better than an 80% chance that Fedor was coming back. The way Mac made that sound last night, that's not the case at this point. Now, it kind of makes you understand why they recruited the way they did though, because they did recruit basically not really over him, but around him. And if you would have told me 2 months ago that this team wasn't going to have Fedor Zugic coming back on top of not having Jemiah, Steven, and Kalkbrenner, I'd have told you we're in a world of hurt. I kind of have a hard time looking at this roster that they've established and finding a spot for him at this point.
That's fair, man. I was going through it in my head the other day, and no offense to anybody, and especially no offense to Fedor, but I kind of forgot. I really did. I was just looking at the transfer list, and I was like, "Oh shoot, yeah, we still have Fedor."
Yeah,
and it's. I mean, what a great problem to have. Because he's a heck of a player, and I'm not taking any shot at him at all. He just slipped my mind. But it's certainly something to think about. I think, this roster is loaded. It just is, and when you look at it from top to bottom, it's really exciting. Obviously, you'd hope that the people watching the show right now that they're all Creighton fans, and
if you're
not, gotta be. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. If you're just here to clown me personally, I got some UConn haters right now.
At CMAT33 on Twitter.
Yeah. But no, I just think the roster's loaded. I think they've done an unbelievable job putting it together. I'm excited for I'm so pumped. I really am. I wish
I
season was
think it's
starting tomorrow.
crazy that we've been talking all offseason about who's coming back, who's not coming back, and we've always kind of said, we don't know about Fedor. When I would say it, I didn't know there was an eligibility issue. I just thought, he came and played college basketball for a year. He played in the NCAA tournament. Maybe he wants to go back home and be a pro in Europe again. I had no idea there was an eligibility issue.
It was a realistic question, though, because he's 24, right? Like, does he want to even want to stay here for another year? He's done the college basketball thing. It's a lot of things that go into it. Back to the roster for a second before we get into our way too early Big East predictions. This is the Roll Jays podcast brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid.
He's 21, by the way.
He's 37. The interesting.
You guys are talking about me?
No,
because I'm neither. But
the interesting thing about the pieces they've added isn't that they just fit so well, is they fit so well and that they're different, right? Like when you look at Josh Dix, he's almost a carbon copy from his body type to what Baylor Shireman was when he showed up on campus. But he plays more like Trey Alexander. And I think that's a really interesting combination. When you look at what Austin Schwartz does and what he can be and what he was limited to at Miami, that brings you a wrinkle that you really haven't had in this offense since Arthur Kaluma, but he's a little more athletic, right? So there's just, and that's not even to mention what I don't think we've seen a player like Nick Graves in a Creighton jersey, not from like, he's just that good or it's just different. Like the way they stacked offense for him at Charlotte and really just let him create separate from the way they ran their offense at times. We've not had an offensive weapon like that in a Jays uniform. So, and then throw Owen Freeman into the equation because it's a different style of big. And I think it's going to allow Creighton to play faster. And would that have necessarily worked the last 4 years? No, but with the pieces that they've assembled this time around, I think it fits Mac's system better.
So you take it, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see Creighton's always played fast, right? But like, we've talked about it. There's a lot of half court sets that they run and things like that, and it hasn't been. It is always go when you get the ball, but it's not necessarily get the fastest shot up possible. Max said last night on the radio that without Ryan Kalkbrenner back there, even though Owen Freeman is a capable defender, they might have to win games 92-90 again. And, they just built the offense to get out and score in a variety of different ways. You went and got a couple of different 3-level scores. And then you got a bunch of guys that can play multiple positions. Like that's the thing that excites me about this team the most is lineup flexibility. You got a 6'8" guard in Blake Harper. Blake Harper. And you got a couple of 6'3", 6'4" guards. You got 6'6" Josh Dix. Like you got a bunch of different guys that can do a lot of things. And if Fedor comes back, there's another decent sized guard forward. And then you have Jason Green, who's played a variety of positions. You got Jackson McAndrew that played the 4 this year, but he might be better suited as a 3 in some aspects in the offense. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that they can do with this lineup now. And that's what excites me the most.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you got to have guys that know their role and that are willing to play their role. I will say this. In all this hype about our recruiting class and transfer portals ads, I think Jason Green has become the forgotten one. And I was talking to Lucas the other day and said, look, I really hope that Jason's excited about the guys that we're adding, but also fired up about how he's kind of been okay, yeah, we also have Jason. Like, no, Jason's a good player, man. And he gives us
the best defender on the team.
He gives us flexibility. I mean, last year he was put in certain situations to guard the 5. I think we gotta just not gloss over the fact that, and I'm not saying we are. I'm just saying in general that I think Jason's a very important piece to this puzzle. Where I think it gets interesting is the way you just talked about, Alex, is Jackson, because you could play Jackson at the 3 and Jason at the 4. You could also play Austin at the 3, Jackson at the 4. You could play Blake. I think right now I'd actually lean more towards Blake at a 4, but I certainly think he'll be mixed in at that 4 wing.
I think he slims down a little bit too.
I mean, he might. I mean, shoot, he lost 32 pounds in 2 months
Yeah.
is last year, and he's excited about Jeremy. Jeremy's excited about him. Like he's certainly that can change. But the only thing on this squad I wonder about is speed, and
Well, that's the interesting thing to me. When I asked Josh Dix about, because we talk about it all the time, the space and the pace that this offense plays with. He goes, he said, I'm not trying to brag, but I'll be really surprised if me and Owen struggle with that, because there were times we were 5 seconds into the shot clock and we were getting shots up at Iowa. That to me is the most intriguing part, because they have a ton of athleticism.
Yeah, they
Can
do.
you have two guys that are used to playing in a fast paced offense come in and transition a little bit smoother than some of the guys like Baylor, like Steven did? Because they got to make up for it on the defensive end too, right? And there's going to be a lot more hard hedging and things like that going on without Ryan Kalkbrenner, because they're not playing drop coverage this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I was thinking speed more defensively, and it's just interesting. That's all I'm saying. I think there's some athleticism, but
There's a lot of length.
Yeah, 100% there is, which helps you defensively. If you're in the right positions, it can certainly help you defensively. I'm excited. We've talked about this before. I'm excited to see what they do in ball screens. I still think they end up. I still really believe they end up going drop coverage as their first option, and then kind of going out from there. I really do. I just think it's become what we are. Forcing teams into that mid-range jump shot. I don't care who the five-man is.
Mac talked about it on the radio last night. He talked about hard hedging and not being able to do that. So, but
no, 100%.
He said switching with what they did with Bishop and Martine, but also still some drop coverages with Owen. Yeah. So I think they're going to be more flexible.
I agreed. I just think eventually.
Well, you've been asking to bench Ryan Kalkbrenner for 6 months now.
That is true, Alex.
Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah.
You finally got your chance to see this team without Ryan Kalkbrenner, but I don't know. I just feel like they end up going back to drop, but that'll be interesting to see, man. I can't wait. Like I said, I think it's a great roster. I love what they've done. Hats off to the staff. I think Trey Ziegler deserves a lot of credit for his work this year in building, helping build this roster, and he's been all over it, obviously, along with Haas and Mac.
And I think that's a great point to point out too, because there was so much talk about what does recruiting at Creighton look like post Ryan Miller, because he was kind of the ace recruiter on the staff for a lot of the guys that they were recruiting over the last 2 to 3 years, and they landed one of the best transfer portal classes, if not the best transfer portal class that they've ever had without Ryan Miller. And I think Trey Ziegler deserves a ton of credit for that as well. Let's move on to our way too early Big East predictions, because the Jays, albeit have been dominating the transfer portal, haven't been the only ones that have had success. And I think we can all probably agree with this, and I'll be surprised if we don't. It's probably going to be Rick Pitino's conference to lose for a while. And the St. John's Johnnies, the Red Storm, have been very active in the transfer portal. They land the freshman from North Carolina, Ian Jackson. He's a 6'4", 185-pound player out of the Bronx. Comes back home to play for Pitino and the Red Storm in Queens. But obviously they also get Bryce Hopkins, and if that name sounds familiar to you, it should. He's been around Providence for like 40 years now, but is now calling Queens home. And I've been really impressed with the way that, listen, it's Pitino, right? And I think we all know Rick Pitino. We have respect for him. But the way he's been able to do it in this era and still be relevant and still win games, even after benching the Conference Player of the Year in the tournament last year, that people are still clamoring to come play for him. I've just been blown away and amazed with what he's been able to do since he's gotten to Queens. What do you say, Casey?
Yeah, it's a pretty stacked roster. The question mark up until last week was the point guard spot, and then they went out and got Dylan Darling from Idaho State, and who can, I think he scored 19 a game, can shoot it around 38% from three. Like he can really play. I like Ian Jackson a lot. I think he's a good player. I think Pitino will find a way to use him to use his strengths to the best of his abilities. To me, Bryce Hopkins is the one that if I'm a St. John's fan, that's why I'm excited. That's what I'm the most excited about. Yeah, I really think so. And then we didn't really even talk about Dylan Mitchell, who the Jays will remember from playing against him at Texas years ago. He's a 2-time transfer. Freak athlete. Foreman can't really shoot it, but can create some issues for you. He's a very good defender. And then, hey, they got this other guy named Zuby at the 5 that's back.
Yeah, he's
who's a
pretty
heck
good.
of a player. I mean, yeah, in his own right. So St. John's is loaded. I agree that they'll go into the year at the preseason number 1 and probably a top 5 preseason team. But heck of a roster. Yeah, certainly the favorites on paper.
Yeah, I mean, Pitino is college basketball coaching royalty, right? And I'm looking here at the conference recruiting rankings. I think they got slided a little bit. They're number 2 behind UConn, according to 24/7.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they have 9 recruits, and historically, I have been the guy that says, you kind of got to have some roster continuity, but there's like, I don't know, 10 coaches in all of college basketball that I think can flip an entire roster and still be successful. And Rick Pitino's at the very top of that list. So,
For sure.
Yeah, it's their league to lose, especially if they get to Championship Sunday in the conference tournament. We experience what the Garden is like then. Now, do I think the Jays can absolutely give them a run for their money all season with what we did in the portal? Yeah, 100%. But they're my preseason favorite.
The interesting thing is, and I've been talking to Mark about this on the weekly show a little bit, is that, they're now, to me, an offense first team. Now, Pitino certainly is going to have them guarding, but
yeah,
they went from a team that, you could, I would say just let them shoot, but you weren't mad if they were shooting threes.
It's on the first half of the championship game.
Exactly. And now it's like, now they're going to have 3 guys at all times, sometimes 4 on the court that can really shoot it. And word is, if I don't know if that episode's out yet on the weekly show, but we got Zach Braziller on from the New York Post, and he was talking about them using Zuby, really working on his 3-point jumper.
Probably set some high ball screens too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of pick and pops, I would assume. He just said they're just really working on his 3-point shot and trying to add more of a perimeter game for him, which that's dangerous. So they're going to be a heck of a team. Obviously, UConn also loaded. They did a great job in the portal, and I feel like this network does a pretty good job of covering UConn, so we probably don't need to go into great lengths on that. Shout out, Mark. But then, I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, I actually, guys, I love our chances. Besides St. John's,
I do too.
I know on paper UConn's going to be penciled in as the number 2. I get that, but it's going to be.
There's a chance all 3 are top 10 preseason, though. There's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people that think Creighton's going to be somewhere around the 8 to 10 range.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they're that high.
Our guy John Fanta had us at 24 last night.
Well,
yeah,
John, I love you, but I think you're wrong.
Yeah,
I let him know.
I would. I mean, again, it's so early, but I'd be surprised if we're that high. But
like John Fanta as a karaoke host, basketball knowledge. That's where
John's a goat. We know that.
Speaking of knowledge, we went to Twitter. We asked you for your questions and wanted to know what you had for us. We're going to do a weekly mailbag segment here on the Roll Jays podcast, and we'll get to that. Peter comes in first and wanted to know, looking at the current roster on average, how many guys should get decent minutes each game? 8, 10, maybe 11. Curious on your thoughts. Thanks, Pete. Thank you so much for the question, first of all. Yeah, and listen, that's something that Mac talked about last night as well, right? He talked about guys getting different times and minutes, and he said he wanted to get back to more what he was doing at Wayne State, where he had guys playing 9 guys that were getting 13 to 14 minutes a game, and I really think that's the best action here too, because you don't have guys like Steven Ashworth, like Ryan Kalkbrenner, that are used to playing 38 minutes either. I mean, Owen Freeman didn't play more than 18 minutes in more than 2 games in his time at Iowa. And we've kind of seen this team lose its gas at the end of the season. I mean, almost 4 seasons in a row. So I'm really excited about the actual depth they have now, and I think they've got to utilize it, but they need guys to step up in those bigger moments. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to get to a point where we're 8 to 9 guys getting 12 plus minutes a night.
I think 9's that magic number.
I think 9's the magic number too. Now, here's the thing. as the season goes on, you kind of tighten that bench if a guy's not playing well, right? But like you can't talk about how well we did in the portal and how loaded this team is, and then expect to only go 7 guys deep. Like you can't, and you shouldn't. So I think we're probably for at least half the season sitting around 9 guys, barring any injuries, and then it tightens up a little bit. But that's the thing about the flexibility that they've created is if a guy's not playing well, you have other options to slot guys, move them down, move them up in positions. And, it wouldn't surprise me if you get to the conference tournament and you go 7 guys deep for the tournament or whatever it is for significant minutes. I think you're constantly going to have a rotation of 8 to 9 guys, but you might only have 7 guys play 10 minutes plus.
Yeah, Mr. J. Moore answers in also says, great question. Having a rotation of 8 or 9 with no one getting more than 30 to 32 minutes would be great. And Casey, that's kind of been the ideal situation, right? Been trying to keep as many fresh bodies on the floor with quality minutes and not having to worry about defensive laps or hunting shots on the other side.
Certainly. I mean, I think, listen, how this is going to shake out, in my opinion, hinges on 2 things. Ty Davis and his development.
Great point.
And who's the backup 5. Those 2 things, to me, will determine the actual number. Because you're going to have Josh Dix, you're going to have Austin, you're going to have, well, we'll see about Fedor, right? Which actually would probably also hinge a little bit on that as well. You're going to have Jackson, you're going to have Jason, you're going to have Blake. Those guys are going to have a shot to play. You're going to have Isaac Trout. I've been saying this for a bit. Isaac, if for some reason you're watching this, I think Isaac would be a very good 5-man. And I know that's not what he loves to play, but I think he would be an unbelievable pick and pop 5-man and would find himself some more minutes. So that to me is interesting. But yeah, the Ty Davis's development and who's the backup 5 for me will determine how many it is. In a perfect world, it's 9 max. And
because there's there's not a lot of minutes.
Right. 10 and 11 to me is just too much because you got to have continuity. Not only do you want individual guys to play, but you want lineups to play together. And you need continuity in that. And when you have 10, 11 guys playing, it's hard. It's really hard to give those guys enough reps together to really get a flow and to know what you have and what you can trust. And that's part of why I feel like with Mac last year, playing Ty Davis late was so smart. One, he needed to, and he earned it. But just to give him some experience late, knowing that Steven's gone, it's just another, I don't know. You guys think I talk about Mac all the time, which I do. He's the best. But it's just another example to me of like forward thinking, and it working out.
Hold on, really quick.
In case I kind of, yeah, go ahead.
Because I just want to get this in really quick. Speaking of Ty Davis and continuity, the thing that has blown me away talking to the new guys coming in is how much they've referenced one of the biggest point of emphasis for them coming to Creighton is Jackson McAndrew and Ty Davis. And the fact that they're saying that and those guys are going to be true sophomores next year, I think speaks volumes about their character. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah. I was just going to kind of build off of, 10 and 11 being too much. Like, yeah, Casey, you're right. You want the continuity, but like you also, guys need to get into a flow on the court. And if you're going in 4 and 5 minute spurts because you're feeding all the bodies, it's really hard. That's incredibly hard for shooters. And this team's built on shooting. So I think 9 is that magic number. And honestly, depending on what you're doing for rotation at the 1 and the 5, 9 might even be 1 or 2 too many.
Sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean,
it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
And Mac will get it figured out. There's no doubt about that. But for with the thing that I like the most about this is there's going to be true competition every day in practice.
Right.
You are going to have to play hard. You're not just going to have a spot. And I love that. So
back to your questions. The mailbag is open. We'll go to Blake, who says, how's the schedule coming along? Any marquee non-con home games coming about? And This, it's like weirdly become one of my favorite things to hear about through the offseason. Who the secret, not so secret scrimmage is going to be against. Obviously, it was against Iowa State a year ago. It led to the Purdue scrimmage at home a couple of years ago as well. And it just feels like it's a way for Mac to kind of keep his finger on the pulse of college basketball as well. I don't think we're going to get blessed with another Kansas game or anything of close to that ilk. If we do, I'll be really surprised. Didn't really benefit Creighton all that much. They won that game to get to get a game like that back at the Chi. I would really like to see Creighton get an invite to a road game. Like, I know a lot of people want to see a big time matchup at the Chi, but I'd really like to see Creighton get an invite to a North Carolina, to a Duke, to a Michigan State, and get that kind of measuring stick game on the road out of the way early and be able to build off that later. I think that would pay huge dividends, but I haven't heard much about the schedule. Casey, have you heard anything?
No, I haven't. You know what though? I'll find out. I'll ask and see if we can get this one. Is there a way to do a repeat mailbag question? Can we do that?
Yeah, Blake, if you're watching, we'll tag you in the post when we and then thank you to everybody that weighed in. That is our last mailbag question. We'll definitely get back to it next week, but we'll follow back up. Is there a dream opponent that's a non-con game you'd like Creighton to play?
Ooh. I mean,
and we're talking like non-con early season. We're not talking matching up in March, because
correct.
I mean, for me, Creighton's already done it with both North Carolina and Duke in March, right?
I'll say this. We'll double down that a home game, a home non-conference game.
Oh.
Dude, it'd be phenomenal if Duke or North Carolina showed up, right? But
yeah, I don't know. You guys got me on this one. I was thinking road game just this year. I think it would be fun to play at Indiana.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably something you may see coming sooner rather than later, with Darren DeVries being at Iowa or at Indiana. Excuse me.
But I don't know. That's just like hey, if you got to wave a magic wand, there's so much more behind the scenes, and that's where, our guy Steve Murfeld is incredible at the scheduling. And when you look at this, when you look at the schedule that he's built year over year, puts us in a position every year. So whatever he's doing, it'll work.
Might need to get Murph back on the show and figure it out.
Oh yeah, we can have Murph. I was talking to him tonight. We'll have Murph. If you're watching this one, I hope dinner was good with Mary Jo. We were talking tonight as he was on the way to dinner, so I hope dinner was good. But no, we'll get Murph on the show for sure. He'll be back. He'll be back.
You know what
I think his debut on the Big East Energy Network.
Good.
That's
could
true.
be.
That's true. I think a good one, and we're probably not going to get it in time, but I would love to have Oregon come in on what is likely Mac's last season.
Could be Dana's last season too.
Have a moment with those two in Omaha would be cool. But like, Oregon's not a marquee matchup to me anymore. But I think that'd be a cool moment.
Yeah. This has been the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. Thank you to everybody that gave us a mailbag question. Don't forget to check out the Big East Energy Network on YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel. Casey, you got one last thing before we get out of here?
Well, I was just going to say, how about this? Let's get some interaction going with people watching the show. Tell us what your magic game would be, but you can't just say the opponent. You got to say why. Give us a little bit of context of why that would be. We'll collect those and we'll talk about it again.
Yeah, leave that in the comments section. We'll actually highlight it and get back to it in the mailbag section next week, and we'll bring it up and we'll debate your thoughts as well. We'd love to know, who is Creighton's dream opponent? Who would you like to see come to the Chi in a meaningful game in November? We'll cover all that and more next time we see you on the Roll Jays podcast, brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing and Pyramid Contractors. We'll see you next time.